Is it Novocaine, then Opus, or Opus, then Novocaine?
Okay, great question. You are the first person who's asked me that.
Congratulations on all of your recent successes, especially Resball, which I saw at TIFF, and I just want to say your performance in that was one of my favorite of last year.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's a
I
really
really appreciate that.
fantastic movie, and you've had a great career. And I actually want to talk about that first. This is an Amber Midthunder weekend. You have not just Novocaine, you have Opus coming. So I'm curious because it is going to be a double feature inevitably. Is it Novocaine, then Opus, or Opus, then Novocaine?
Okay, great question. You are the first person who's asked me that. I feel like if you want to go in strong and then have like a nice pick me up, I think Novocaine. I think Novocaine second. Honestly, I feel like I would do Opus and then Novocaine because I love to. I think both are really. I think both are very distinct, but I think it's like Novocaine. You leave the theater so hype that I think that like that is the perfect. To me, like watching Novocaine and then the way that you feel when the lights come on, that's how you want to feel at the end of a movie like that. I think it's the perfect double feature.
For sure. I could not agree more. And my next question, I'm sure you and Jack have been asked this 1,000 times. Like, if you could obviously not feel pain, what would you do? But I want to put a spin on that. Which
hmm
of your castmates that you've worked with in this movie or any other project would take the most advantage of having no pain?
Oh, great question. I want to say Ray. I feel like Ray is by far the most adventurous of all of us. I think the most interesting answer Jack and I have said is that we would like go as far as stubbing our toes without feeling pain. I feel like Ray would do something far more interesting.
You know what? As someone who actually broke their toe by stubbing it, I totally agree with you and Jack. Like,
It's
Yeah.
I
See?
totally agree with you. But Ray, that's very. You know what? After Smile, I could totally see him doing something really weird with no pain. Something very interesting.
Yeah. We actually all were talking because obviously we shot the movie in Cape Town. We all at one point were like convinced that we were gonna go shark cage diving together when the movie ended. We had the main artist who was in charge of like special effects who did all of Jack's like injuries and all of anything like cool and crazy and gross you see in the movie belongs to this amazing artist named Clinton, and he was just also like the man who had all the like recommendations, and somehow he convinced each of us individually that we should go shark cage diving. And we were like, yeah, let's do it, super game. Never did. So maybe we would go shark cage diving.
You know what? That would be very cool. And I actually want to talk about Clinton because I watched an interview you did this weekend and you mentioned how you would just go in when Jack was getting the makeup done and you would just see the props, and like how jarring they were,
hmm
like the fake head or the deep fried hand. I'm curious, what was the one that gave you the most shocked, jarring reaction when you just walked in and saw it for the first time?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so there was one that I won't give away too much, but there was one that we were doing night shoots for like, I don't know, a week or two, and there was like a lot going on in this sequence, and Jack would just there was like a whole rig involved for him, and so it was like I would just see like a crowd of people. Like it felt like there were like 9 people around him, just like swarming, buzzing. He was like laying on the ground, and then they would like step up and away, and it was just like he just looked like a sad little pile of like skin and blood and bone, and he couldn't move, and it was just so no matter how many times I looked at it, it was so shocking to look at.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about actually, and yeah, that's definitely, yeah, that's a lot from even for me, someone who
Yeah.
loves gore. It's really rough. And
Yeah.
I want to go back to Nathan's ability in this movie to not feel pain, as well as your previous experience with action movies. This is obviously not your first rodeo. Was there something that happened either on Novocaine or something like Prey or any other action movie where you wish you didn't have to feel that pain, whether it was just like a bad fall or just something went wrong?
Um, it's funny. On Legion, my first job ever, I did actually right before my first night sequence. I was very into CrossFit at the time, and I was going to a CrossFit gym in Vancouver, and I got injured at a class, and I didn't really know like the protocol of kind of like telling your work, that you're injured or like how that goes. So I just showed up to work one day fully on crutches. I had my first action sequence of the whole show like the following week. So everybody was like wildly alarmed. So I feel like not that not feeling pain would have helped me do it better, but maybe would have stopped the panic. So I want to say maybe that one.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Also, I'm from Toronto, so here in Vancouver, love the Canadian love there.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, I love
love
Canada.
Oh yeah. And something else I gotta say, you're my favorite character in this movie, actually. I really love like Sherry's
Oh,
story,
thank
her
you.
development, and like the arc she goes through. Like there's the moment where there's a big reveal about halfway through the movie, my entire theater just gasped. Everyone was like stunned. So
Yeah.
and your performance is so good. So I'm curious. I was like asking actors and actresses, what do you see yourself? What do you see within Sherry the most about you? Like, what is your favorite trait? What is your favorite quirk about her that you feel like you resonate with the most?
Yeah, I mean, I love that you said quirk because I do think she's quirky. I think that
Mhm.
like that's so much of her charm. I think that the reasons that you love Sherry are, what make her the most vulnerable. And I think that like for a character in this position, like, a female love interest, I think in movies like this are not often afforded the like complexity or layers that Dan and Bobby were so intent on giving her and that I was also intent on giving her. Um, and I think like as guarded as she is, when you see her really, I think, kind of show herself and be vulnerable, I think that's what makes you love her the most. And it's also what makes you buy into the Nate and Sherry relationship. It's so much pressure for this movie because if you don't love these two people together, you don't, the journey that Nate goes on doesn't mean the same thing. So I think that Sherry is very complicated, and I think that that's really special.
Yeah, and the way you talk about like you and Jack, like you need to be a believable couple for people to root for you. You guys very much are, and I loved your chemistry together. It's absolutely fantastic. Obviously, sometimes that doesn't happen in movies, and it's really unfortunate because it really hinders the movie. But in this case, it uplifts it in so many ways. What was the moment, either while shooting or rehearsing, where it clicked? When you're like, okay, this is gonna work. We're gonna have great scenes together.
Oh, it was immediate. I think we became best friends instantly. We met once before. We had not met each other ever prior to signing on to this movie together. We had, however, we do have a mutual friend in Dan Trachtenberg who obviously directed Prey and directed the first episode of The Boys.
Love
And so he, while the whole time I was shooting Prey, was constantly telling me like, Jack Quaid is an amazing actor. He's a great guy. You have to find something with him. I just feel like you guys would be great in something together. And I guess he was telling Jack the same thing. So even though we had never spoken and never met, I think we both kind of mutually were like really wanting to do something together. So it was just kind of like set up like this. But yeah, we met for the first time in LA. We had lunch together after we'd both signed on, and I think we just both were like, yep, this is definitely going to work out. And it just continued that way. I mean, even in Cape Town, our birthdays I think are like 2 days apart. We had a joint birthday party
Oh my
that the
God,
directors threw for us.
I love
Yeah,
that.
it was like we're little kids. We had a joint birthday party. But it was just, I think we just got really, really lucky in being able to like find, a supporter and a great like scene partner and friend.
So what you're telling me is Dan Trachtenberg is going to be a matchmaker for upcoming rom-com action movies, right? I'm getting that.
We have Dan Trachtenberg to thank for this.
I love that. I hope to thank him whenever the new Predator movie comes out. And just my last question before I go, I absolutely love the trend of action movies having very out of place songs play as needle drops, and it's really prevalent in Novocaine, and even not even just action scenes in the opening REM. I love that. If you, for any of your previous action scenes or any potential future ones, what's one crazy out of place needle drop you would love personally?
Ooh, you have great questions.
Thank you.
Okay, I will say I would love to. I don't know if this is out of place, but I would love to see an action sequence to "Sex on Fire" by Kings of Leon because so Jack and I both found immediately also that we work extensively with like character playlists.
Mhm.
And Kings of Leon was like we had songs for each of our respective characters. We also had songs for Nate and Sherry together. And my like number one song for Sherry was Sex on Fire by Kings of Leon. So I feel like that would be a super fun action sequence song.
That sounds great. And I just have to ask now, because you say character playlist as a music lover, was Oh Sherry by Steve Perry on that list, on the playlist?
It did make its way on there, yeah.
I love that. I love to hear that. That was so happy. I love that song.
So was Sherry Sherry Lady. That was a big one.
Yeah. Oh, that's a big one right now too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much again for taking the time out of your day. I absolutely love this movie. Huge fan of your work, and I hope to talk to you soon for some future projects you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.